Hey guys! So in the past I've made some videos about what to expect when you come to Glasgow. I've made an accommodation video and all these kinds of things that might be useful for prospective students coming to Glasgow. And I figured another really helpful one would be to cover the cost of living when you come to the city. So this is just going to be a general what to expect cost-wise when you come and study in the University of Glasgow. Naturally, the cost of living will depend based on how extravagant or thrifty you like to live. I'm just going to give you an average based on how I kind of live a comfortable lifestyle. I wouldn't say that I'm extravagant, and I am a little bit thrifty, so it might be on the lower end. But because the price depends so much on basically every factor under the sun, it's hard to tell you exactly what to expect. I'll just give you a brief overview, and hopefully that's gonna be helpful. Starting off, I'm gonna talk about rent. When it comes to rent, as a Glasgow University student, you have the option of, I've made a video about this in the past, you've got the option of private accommodation or university accommodation. University accommodation is quite expensive, I will say this. You've got a whole price breakdown on the website, and prices per month will range between $415 to $750 depending on a variety of factors, like whether it's en suite, whether it's catered, whether it's shared, and all these things you can find on the website, so I won't bother telling you about them because they're quite nicely laid out. Do keep in mind that with university accommodation, bills are included, gym membership is included, and cleaning is included. So while they are more expensive, it's kind of for a reason. Private accommodation is kind of a different ballgame. The price range is similar, usually between £400 to £600 a month, not including bills. And this will obviously depend on how lucky you are when finding a flat, how many people you live with, where in the city you live with, and literally so many things. It will depend on so many things. If you're lucky, you might find a flat going for £300 a month, but it's more likely that you'll probably end up in a flat, especially if you're living in the West End. It'll cost you around, let's say, £450 a month, not including bills. So, taking all of that into consideration, we're going to say that the average price of rent in Glasgow per month is £450 a month. Moving on, we're going to talk about utilities. So here I'm just going to talk about things like gas, electricity, water, Wi-Fi, your data plan, and costs that you're kind of going to have to consider if you want to be an independent person who lives in the world. Nice thing about Scotland, one thing Scotland did get right, they got a lot of things right, including this, is that students don't have to pay for water, which is really cool. So you can take water out of your calculations for your monthly costs. What you will have to pay for is electricity and gas. My flat of 4 contributes £20 a month each to gas and electricity. Sometimes we use all of it, sometimes we need to add more, and sometimes it's enough to cover a month and a bit more. Now with the prices going up for gas and electricity, we might end up spending a little bit more, but I would say average price for electricity and gas is about £20 a month per person. Wi-Fi. So Wi-Fi is obviously really important, especially if you're a student doing your education online. So there's lots of different Wi-Fi providers, and they all give you different deals and different bandwidth and all this stuff that I actually don't really know anything about. We're with Virgin Media, and our Wi-Fi comes out every month, and it just depends on how much we use. Usually our costs for Wi-Fi come to about like £15 a month per person. And yeah, this ranges, it changes, and maybe we use less than the average household, I'm not sure, but we can say if you use a lot of Wi-Fi, you're probably going to spend about £25 a month, so we'll take an average and say that Wi-Fi is going to cost you £20 a month per person. as a functional person in society, you probably are going to want a data plan. Now this is not sponsored. I don't know why my hands just did that, but this isn't sponsored, but I am with Voxy right now. I have a SIM from Voxy, and they have this really good deal where it's basically like unlimited social media, unlimited calls and texts, and an additional 15 gigabytes of data, which is unrelated to social media, and that's all for £10 a month. Like I said, this isn't sponsored, but if you're a student and you're on a budget and you need to pay for your own data plan, like, I haven't found anything that's better than that, so I would recommend that personally. Yeah, so I'm gonna add that into your costs and say that that's another £10 a month per person. So yeah, a big sum total for your utilities per month is probably gonna range between, if you're really thrifty, maybe £30 a month, and if you're more extravagant, like I said, maybe 75. And so I'm just gonna say £50 a month per person in utilities is an average price that you might expect. Now, moving on into transportation. So I made a video on different methods of transport in Glasgow, and I didn't really talk about the prices that much, but I did mention that in Scotland there's the 21 and unders bus pass, which gives you free bus travel around the entire country, and you can also get a 16 to 25 rail card, which gives you a third off of all train journeys, and I'd really recommend both of those. But to be honest, if you live in the West End and if you go to the University of Glasgow, I don't think that you'll have that many transportation costs unless you're trying to get out of the city, or maybe to somewhere a little bit further, like Southside. So say you're taking the bus and you don't have a bus pass, it's going to cost you between £2 to £4 for one way or a return. It just really depends on where you're going and how many times a week you're going. But say you take one bus a week and you take one trip out of the city a week to go see some beautiful part of Scotland, which I would recommend you to do, then let's say that transportation costs on a weekly basis are maybe £5 to £10, and on a monthly basis like £20 to £40. But that's really give or take. Like I said, I personally don't have that many transportation costs, so it's difficult for me to say, because it just depends on where you live, what you're doing, where you're taking the bus, you know, just so many things. So I'm just gonna say £20 a month for transportation. Moving on, food. I'm a vegetarian and I cook basically every night for myself. So my food costs really aren't that high. I can usually get by, I do a weekly shop and it usually costs me about £15 a week. And then I'll top it up with like bits and bobs. So I would say that my weekly food costs are about £20 a week. Now, I'll give leeway and say that maybe once a week I go for dinner with a friend or lunch with a friend, which is gonna cost me another £10 if we split it. So that brings us to about £30 a week or £120 a month. And yeah, like I said, if you eat meat, if you don't cook a lot, this is gonna be more expensive. Okay, final thing I'm gonna talk about is extra expenses. So far, most of the things I've covered are kind of unavoidable costs, rent, food, all of that, things that you just can't avoid in life. You're also gonna spend money on experiences, clothes, drinks with friends, and just a range of other things. So I'm just gonna factor that in. Let's take a hypothetical person with a relatively active social life and say that this person goes out maybe once or twice a week for pints at the pub with their friends. Say they have 3 pints every time they go out. An average pint is going to cost you £4, and if you're having 3 pints, it's going to be £12. So we go to the pub twice a week. Let's say that's £25 a week for just going to the pub. Now say we also like going out for coffees once or twice a week with a friend. An average coffee is going to cost you around £3. If you're doing that twice a week, £6. So give or take, with a social life, which includes going out to the pub, if you like the pub, going out for a coffee, if you like a coffee. Let's say that's gonna add another £120 a month on a monthly basis, which, you know, that's all up to you. You can choose not to drink, which would save you a lot of money, or maybe you don't like coffee. Yeah, that's just something to keep in mind. Drinking culture is quite big in Scotland, so you're most likely, if you're gonna make friends, you're probably gonna go to the pub. That's also a helpful tip. I didn't realize that when I first came here, and I didn't like beer, so that was also a problem. Like beer, go to the pub. That's how you make friends in Scotland. Also, if you're a smoker, keep in mind that tobacco and cigarettes here are really, really expensive. A pack of cigarettes is gonna cost you anywhere between 10 to 15 pounds, and a bag of baccy is also gonna cost you around 15 to 20 pounds. I'm actually not entirely sure, but I know that smoking is really, really expensive here, so if you're a smoker, keep that in mind. And that brings us to a sum total of living costs in Glasgow per month. Like I said, all of these costs are hypothetical and average, so there's obviously going to be variance in your own life. You might be spending a lot more than me, you might be spending a lot less than me, but this hopefully just gives you an overall picture of what to expect when you're coming to the city. And the grand total, when we consider rent, utilities, food, transport, and extra expenses, comes to about £750 a month for someone living in Glasgow. I hope this video is helpful. If you have any more questions or these types of videos are particularly helpful, then comment that down below and we can make more videos like this. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. This was Living Costs in Glasgow.